Hello, guys. It is not Ryan Solomon this time. It is me, Pascal Flor, back at the Improvement Season podcast. And on the other end, as always, it's Steve Hall because he's never actually on holiday. So this is the face that you are always seeing. It has only been once, right, that you've been away or so? Or twice?
Recently, the last year really was not away. And Charlotte probably not too happy about that.
No.
I probably should try and make sure to go away at some point.
Neither's Katie. I mean, we've only been to Munich, kind of due to business.
It wasn't really much of a holiday.
No, it wasn't. And I just took her with me. But
you went to the zoo and you did
we
a vlog.
went to the zoo. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to see something about that, see all the animals that we've seen or that I've seen. It was a lot of monkeys and a lot of birds. I was already saying that in the vlog. And the vlog you can see over on our membership site. And yeah, I mean, it was a lovely trip, but it was freaking cold in Munich. That was right before the storm hit Europe, and the weather was lovely. And then the day after we've left, they actually shut down public transportation. So we were actually quite lucky because otherwise we wouldn't have come or get home. So yeah, here we are, back home.
And why were you in Munich? Did we say last time? I don't think we did.
Due to the WMBF seminar with Eric Helms. So what they've done is actually, I didn't really quite get it, to be honest. So the WMBF has now a different affiliate system, I think, where the Germans, the Russian, the French, the Italian WMBF affiliates got together to organize something, I don't know, where you then can qualify for Worlds somehow differently. I didn't really get it, to be honest, as you can tell by me trying to explain it. They've explained it on the go, and I was just like, what is going on? I have no idea, right? So, but it was due to the WMBF. They brought over Eric Helms, and he did a little bit of his thing and did a little bit of a presentation. And yeah, that's basically why we've been in Munich. But it was a very, very short presentation. One day it just went from 1 to 5 and was just like straight through with only like one toilet break in between, which was a little bit of a bummer, to be honest. The organization wasn't as good. Sorry, WMBF. And you didn't really get the chance. Yeah, and you didn't really get
all our clients' chances.
You didn't really get the chance to actually interact and get to know other people, which was very unfortunate because there were so many WMBF people there, like the organizers and the head of WMBF in France, the head of WMBF in Italy, stuff like that. So all of these guys were there. It would have been the perfect opportunity to actually connect, but there wasn't the chance for it, at least not for me, because I didn't go to the posing session afterwards, just due to the family, because it would have been too late, and it was, I think, like 1 hour away from actually the center of Munich. So yeah, long story short, been to Munich. Was a nice trip, but at the same time, I just once again came to the realization that traveling with kids that are like 6 months and 3 years old is not fun at all, especially like a small child, like a toddler. I mean, it's not for them. Let's put it that way. The noise, the stress, all that kind of stuff. And basically what I once again realized is just like, why are you doing that? It is just for your own sake. It's not because you want to do something good for the kids, because they can't remember a trip like this. And then it brings up the question, like, is it very much necessary to put them through this stress? And it was very, very stressful. And it wasn't the first time that we've actually gone through something like that. And I just realized, like, okay, this is something that we won't do again. If we go on holiday the next time, then it's something like, I don't know, countryside or so.
It makes complete sense. I've only experienced it with like my sisters and them having their kids around, and even when they're like 5 years old plus, it's still like, I can only imagine the stress that they're under, having to completely monitor them the whole time. So
not only this, but also just like for a baby, the entire noise around him. It's just like they can't filter all the noises and stuff. It's like Charles Xavier from X-Men when he actually, I don't know, this is how I imagine things to be. He's hearing all the voices of all the people and the mutants around him, right? And if he can't filter them, like when he's sitting in, what's it called again? That...
I know what you mean.
What's it called
I'm
again?
just gonna put a chamber.
Yeah. And when he has like this metal head, metal thing on his head, right? He can actually hear all of the thoughts from all of the people in the world if he isn't careful enough, right? And I can't imagine that this is what a baby is going through, that he can't filter everything that is going on around him. All the noises, all the impressions, all the, I don't know, smells even, what he sees. It's just like total sense overkill for him. And that's why I think it's just like, just a big stressor.
Yeah, I can absolutely see that. But I think like you learn and it makes you a better parent overall. So
absolutely.
That's cool. I've just got a question. Obviously, we saw on the vlog, and Jess also sent me it. WNBF Worlds is now in Las Vegas, yes. And also, I think because I had Charlie, shout out to Charlie, who is a physique competitor, and he is from Dubai but competed in Spain in the WNBF. I think he came. He came third in the WNBF men's final men's physique, and he was deemed of quality to go to men's Worlds. And I think he came 6th at Worlds, so just missed placing, which is incredible actually. But obviously in the UK, you have to qualify and then kind of win at UKDFBA finals normally. That's how it goes. And then you get to go to Worlds. So it's a little trickier. But Jess was saying how in France, in Paris, they're having like a WNBF qualifier in September, which is really near Worlds time. And I've been considering whether or not, like, depending on how I'm feeling, whether or not I end up actually going to Europe and depending how it goes in the UK, to just go and do a show. Like, if she's competing there, maybe I'll like hop on. Or I don't know if you're considering doing like the Germany WNBF. I guess you are.
Yeah, this was on my radar anyway. Like Germany and the ANBF as well. So yeah, that was always the plan for me.
Someone actually messaged me and said, in July, Muscle Mayhem in I can't actually remember where that is I can't remember where it is in America, but it's like a huge show for them. And they're like, are you going to go and compete in it? And I was like, I didn't even consider it. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, it kind of depends. If I feel like I'm at a standard that I'm really happy with my physique and I can be competitive, it's like, well, how often am I going to be at this level? Not very often. So maybe actually flying out there and doing that is worth it. So it certainly made me consider doing some European shows, especially if like you're there or if Jess is there, which is really cool. I think
absolutely.
And I don't know what it is for. I know you're looking to do UKDFBA in August, so we're all there. Have you looked into whether or not you need to, like, say I'm an international competitor and I need to, I don't know, pass it by you?
So I had one client who competed like last year, which was Tim Glaser, who also then competed at the BNBF. And there he was an international athlete, but I don't, right from the top of my head, I don't know the differences now from the BNBF to the UKDFBA, whether it changes like once again, because they always change things on a yearly basis. So I have to double check one more time. So it could very, very well be that this is actually what I'm then categorized as.
Because I always think it's a shame in the US. I've had clients who, like, they have a show in a state like any week of the year almost. It just seems ridiculous. And then I thought, actually, whilst it's not super convenient, we could like fly around Europe and there's WNBF shows going on. So I'm actually, although I don't like flying and I hate to think the stress and how that's going to impact my physique. But if I flew out a few days beforehand, and I mean, it's not like it's huge amounts of jet lag going that far, I reckon that could definitely be on the cards. Because I was like, I'm only going to compete at a qualifier, and then if I qualify, I'm going to go to finals. I'm going to do 2 shows.
I'm aiming for like 5 shows or so.
Yeah.
Just because I'm not expecting to go to any kind of finals or not even to Worlds or something like that. It's just, I don't think that it's in the cards for me, for someone with my physique, with my unfortunately, the downsides that we've also talked about here in the previous weeks, like the past 3 weeks, that were things that just went through my head. Just for the listeners, to give a little bit of context behind that, it's just like I'm coming from an obese background, and unfortunately, I was that guy who had stretch marks and loose skin all over the body that never actually then kind of healed up, if you want to put it that way. Some people are very lucky, right? They've been very obese and you can't even see that on their skin. And for some people, such as me, it never actually grew back or it kind of shrank. So I always have like loose skin. You can't really see that much unless I'm in certain positions or so. And unfortunately for me, it is on certain body parts where I find it very, very annoying and very concerning for my mental health, to be absolutely blunt, especially because I have it around my chest and around my midsection. And that looks as if I am like that cupcake mode. It always quills over my pants. And no matter how lean I am, the same goes for my chest. And when I'm standing, and especially when it's warm, right? When it's warm, then my skin is a little bit looser, and then it's actually like just, I don't know, hanging a little bit, and then it looks a little bit like bitch tits, which is very much getting to my head. And I don't think that it's getting better when you're even leaner and leaner, right? And I think that when I don't even think that, but when I take a look at my physique right now, I think I could look so much better when the skin wouldn't be as loose, because when I can pull it back, right? I can pull it back on my back and then kind of straighten it a little bit, and then I have so much more definition already, right? And it's just so unfortunate because I can't fill it out with muscle mass. I would need to get massive for that, and it just always plays with my head. And because of things like these, I don't think that I would ever be qualified to actually make it to Worlds. Of course, never say never. I know, always look at the bright side of things, always try your very best, but it is a massive limitation already.
It's like we talked about with Jess, where it's kind of, and someone actually, again, keep saying someone, he knows who he is, and he probably will listen to this, so I won't say his name just for sake of kind of keeping him to himself, but he was like, doing the show, I think it's Sacramento, Muscle Mayhem, he was like, will that kind of mess up your plan for Worlds? And I was like, I'm not really considering Worlds. And he was like, I don't have that mentality, blah, blah, blah. And I understand that, but I'm very similar to you. I'm under no impression that I'm of a standard that's going to make it to Worlds, but I'm not going to say I'm not going to put every single ounce of effort to get there. There's a big difference between that. There's being realistic and then there's being like defeatist. We're not being defeatist. You're not being defeatist. You're just saying how it is.
Absolutely. And this is something that I think is very valuable and important for people to realize. There's a massive difference between like defeatist and also then being realistic about things. I think you can still be realistic without being pessimistic about the outcome. And I think that many people, when you speak things out loudly, such as I've done now, people think that I'm pessimistic about it. To some extent, yes, but this is more like a personal opinion, that I think that I could look better, and also I think that I would be happier, like honestly. And this is something that I told Katie, that this is something that haunts me already since I've lost the weight when I was 14. And going through puberty with something like this, and I was lean, I was skinny, right? When I've lost like 30 kilograms, going from 90 kilograms to 60 at the age of 16, then I was lean. I wasn't fat anymore, and you can see that from pictures and stuff. But still, I wouldn't dare to take off my t-shirt because of that, because I had the feeling I was still fat because my skin was so loose that everything was still jiggling. And because of that, I always had the impression of being fat, even though that it may not have been the case. And this haunts me to that day. And that's why I'm thinking that it could look so much better. And I would also think that I would look so much better. And this is also one of the reasons why potentially I could imagine getting surgery in the future about this, just because it has haunted me for such a long time. And it is the same when it comes to, I would put it nearly on the same level when it comes to females who or get some breast enlargement because they have nothing maybe, or they've had like more like fatty breast tissue, then they dieted down, lost everything, and now there's only like skin hanging there, right? It is such a mental stressor, especially for females, where like outside, unfortunately, many females are also then being judged by that. And when a huge compartment of the female physique isn't present, that is something that is very, very hard on females. And believe me, I had one, she wasn't a girlfriend. I was seeing her for a very long time. She was into sports and she had no breasts at all anymore. It was just skin. And she was just opening up about it and the way she felt. And it just opened my eyes about that issue as well. And I could somewhat relate and understand that. But hearing that then from a person like this just made it even more obvious to me how someone like this must feel. And yeah,
I think it's so powerful, and I'm really glad that you're opening up about it, because I think there's got to be females listening who probably have had breast enlargement and maybe part psychological, but there's also, if the sport means a lot to you, it's, to be honest, like for some of the competitions females do, like having larger breasts probably is helpful, I guess, in some way. I think like a lot of women actually do it because it enhances their physique overall as a complete package. For the life of me, I'm not sure like of the judging criteria, and I'd hate to think like that they are demonized for having smaller breasts, but I know a lot of competitors do it. So for you, like getting rid of that loose skin to be more competitive, I mean, you couldn't even say, oh, that's a wrong thing to do, you don't love your body. It's kind of like, but I'm doing it because like I'm trying to be more competitive. And then you take it to the level of it's better for my psychological health and my mental well-being. And yeah, you could argue, oh, you should be happy with like the fact that you're a fit and healthy individual. And I think you overall are happy with that. But if you could improve your mental health from 90% to like 95, 99% just by doing that, I mean, I have nothing against you for doing that at all. I think it's a big difference to someone who like idolizes a certain physique and they think if they get that physique by having this surgery, they're going to feel from 0% to 100%. That's a big difference from what you're talking about there. And I think it's a powerful message, actually.
And I think that one ties into to the other. It's not that I'm only doing it to be more competitive. Right? It is more like reason, really. It is more like, okay, because it has been around and it has always haunted me since the age of like 14, 13, since I started to lose that weight. But of course, when you are an adolescent, an early adult, you don't have the financial capacity to actually afford something like this. Right? Makes absolutely sense. And then on the contrary, you could bring up the case like, okay, when you're getting older, it becomes less important to you to look a certain way. And I do give less fucks about it, but still, I'm always then just recently, once again, when there is more attention to your physique, and this is what bodybuilding freaking is. You are putting so much emphasis on your physique, the more you become aware of these kind of small, minor imperfections. And even though that other people love you for the person you are, you see those imperfections and you would like to actually get rid of them. And if they have been present for such a long time already, and now they become even more emphasized and more enhanced due to you getting leaner, but it's not getting it's not like fat, right? That you can lose and then it's gone. It will always be there. And that the leaner you're getting, the more emphasis is probably put onto that problematic area for me. And yeah, this is something, I mean, we've been talking about that now for a very long time here on this podcast, but this is something that I've always considered. And after this competitive season, I need to very much consider whether I want to do this. Not due to the competitive nature, but just I will, by the end of this competition season, I can truly tell whether it was a problem for me or whether it was more like a case of like, yeah, all right, this is just a part of me now and I don't really care and it's not worth to undergo that process to feel just a little bit better. And maybe by the end of the competitive season, I realized like, okay, it isn't as bad as I thought it is, but yeah, we will have to see actually.
And I know it's a weird comparison to make, but we all get haircuts, we all trim our beard, we all wash ourselves. It's kind of like we do these things because they make us feel better in part, and it's part of like self-love and self-care. And I think if like you need to take it to I know it's a much more extreme decision that you're talking about, but at the same instance, it's still an element of self-care, and like your psychological well-being may well be very much improved. So yeah, I mean, we have talked about it a lot, but I think maybe some of the listeners can kind of relate to it. And I know for me personally, I only had a small experience of it because when I had very low testosterone levels and my estrogen was out of balance, I had bitch titched, like legit. And my friends would tease me. They'd like poke my nipples, pinch them, and it hurt. And it was like, they'd be laughing and I'd be like in tears, inside at least. It was horrible. And I only had that for maybe a number of months before I got to the bottom of it and managed to solve the issue. But I can remember how bad I felt, how good I felt when it was gone. And if someone can give them that to themselves through a generally not kind of crazy procedure, I wouldn't ever stop someone doing that.
Absolutely.
So on a lighter note, you're in your deload and you're having a bit of a diet break. How does that look for you? I know you spoke to me about keeping your steps. Do you keep those the same as you normally do?
Yeah, so I'm a little bit more flexible when it comes to that. So I'm not very much meticulous about I need to hit a minimum of 10,000 steps. Because right now when I was cutting, it was my minimum goal for the day. 10,000 steps, nothing below. And I've very much always been there. So there wasn't one day that I missed my step count.
One day.
Bristol. One day? That's true. That's true. It was only at 9,000.
I remember because you told me.
Yeah.
You were just below it.
Exactly. I thought that I'm getting to it. And then I was at home, or rather in the hotel room. And then I realized, like, hold on. How many steps did I actually manage to get in? And it was 9,000. Because on the boat, we still been at 7,000. And I just assumed that we get in like 3,000 easily. So yes, one day I missed it. But now for the diet break, like yesterday, I managed to get in like, I think 9,000 steps. And today I'm easily over that. Because I went out for a longer walk with Tony. But yeah, I'm not getting out of my way to actually get that in. I try to be somewhat in that ballpark to keep that rhythm up, to keep my habits up of like going out on a walk here in the morning, going out on a walk here in the midst of the day, stuff like that. But it's not like that I'm chasing that number and it's like, okay, shit, I got 9,000 steps, so I need to go around the block here for one more walk. If that's the case, I'm just staying at home now.
Perfect.
And it's only for like 6 days of the diet break. And then, with all of the other habits, I'm keeping them the same as well. So I'm trying to eat at the same times, trying to have somewhat the same portion sizes. So when it comes to the satiety level, so this is something that you then need to start listening to your body, where it's like, it is very hard when you're upping the calories to not go overboard in regards to feeling absolutely full. But this is something that I want to avoid because I don't want to actually give the body the sensation that now, all right, we get so much more food in, the stomach is now enlarged once again. And the sensation is just like, I don't know, the satiety sensation threshold is now being put up again. And then you're going back into a caloric deficit. And all of a sudden you are more hungrier than before. And this is something that I wanted to avoid. This is why I kept nearly all of the variables the same, except for, of course, then the total amount of calories. I'm once again eating the potatoes with the quark. It's just amazing. It fills me out. And yeah, I mean, that's basically what I'm doing. And I think, and we've talked about it here the last time that we've both had a diet break, I think it was, that this is the way that I would recommend everyone to do a diet break, because I see it all the time that people then go out and treat a diet break like a proper break of like, okay, I take a break from tracking, take a break from eating the wholesome foods, but more so squeeze in as many palatable things as possible, because I only have the window of opportunity, and that I need to make use of that one. It's the same when it comes to like entering a cutting phase. The day prior to that, oh shit, tomorrow I will be starting a cutting phase. I'd rather make sure to eat all of the Ben & Jerry's I have in my fridge right now, right? Or in the freezer rather. And keep things the same, because otherwise you are not making things any easier for yourself when you are then going back into a caloric deficit, and also the likelihood that you are then derailing and going overboard is actually highly increased. And I had like 2 clients now who went through a prolonged diet break together with a primer phase, and it worked wonders for them, wonders. And they've been at a very high body fat percentage. And I said to them like, okay, you had such a huge success over the past weeks, and you don't want to actually destroy that progress in just a couple of days. You would be devastated if you would do that. So treat that still as part of the diet. Then come out of the diet break and be happy with the progress, because then you can actually you feel so much better most of the time when you had that prolonged diet break. And you go back into a diet, into the diet, and it's just like a smooth ride then. Like, honestly, it doesn't feel like as if you've dieted before, especially when your body fat is still a little bit higher. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying the podcast. Just wanted to take one moment of your time to actually talk about our coaching services over at Revive Stronger. We at Revive Stronger, we offer an incredible premium personal coaching service just for people like you, and I know you will love it. Do you want to work with us? Here's what I need you to do. Head over to revivestronger.com. Go up to the coaching tab, click on online coaching. Once there, read through the requirements and what it takes to be an online client. Once finished, hit apply now, and you're only one step away from applying to our services. Fill out the Google form and you're done. And that was basically it. A coach is going to reach out to you shortly, and then it's Team Revive Stronger.
I think it's so tricky, because now that terminology has become so cemented within the fitness realm. But when you think about diet doesn't necessarily mean you're in a deficit. You could be on a diet, like your diet is just your diet, it's what you're eating. So when you hear diet break, it's like, oh, I just break everything that I normally would do. And it's like, well, actually, it's kind of like a deload to what you're currently doing. It's like a deload to the diet. And maybe that's where we have to like rephrase it, be like, we have a training deload, now we have a dietary deload to combine with that. And maybe that gets people's heads a bit straighter, because
no, absolutely,
I can see it.
That's why when Valentin Tambosi came onto the podcast, I named it Dietary Periodization, the podcast episode, because this is basically what it is. You're periodizing your diet. You're planning out your diet for something like the contest prep, especially, where it's like, okay, this is what we're doing in the first block. It's basically like a normal periodization for training, right? Where you have like your blocks for hypertrophy, followed by maybe something like a metabolite block, followed by a strength block, followed by, I don't know, something like that, where you're periodizing, or whether it is for Olympic weightlifting, where you have your higher volume, more technique kind of stuff, and then closer to the competition, you are more so tapering to that and incorporating more and more the competition lifts and stuff. Dieting is basically the same, or you can look at it the same way.
Absolutely. So, what was I going to say? I have no idea.
When is your next diet break?
So I'm in week 4 of my mesocycle now, and I definitely have a week 5 in me. I feel pretty good, actually. Even my squats is the only thing that's just maintaining performance for the most part, week on week at the moment. Actually, it's been improving, but versus my last mesocycle, it's kind of maintaining performance, if not maybe moderately down, but everything else is improving. Or bench, again, I'd say is kind of holding, but everything else is improving. I keep saying that. So yeah, I have another week in me for sure. I don't feel trashed at all this week at the moment, at least. So I'll be going into week 5, and then I'll have a deload, and I'll be bringing calories up to maintenance for the 7 days.
Have you made any kind of big adjustments to your training protocol?
No, it's actually pretty much stayed very, very stable. I think part of what ends up happening is whilst your recovery comes down and your MRV might come down, your ability to recover from volume and higher higher repetitions kind of goes up. You get a bit fitter, if you know what I mean. So I think that has started to happen with me. I found like my rest periods don't need to be quite as long sometimes. I find I'm just becoming like which in some ways you don't want, like endurance characteristics, which is why we periodize again our training like this. But no, nothing major. I can't think of anything major that's changed my training actually. Everything, like I'm pretty damn happy of how everything's
when it
moving
comes to
along there.
set progression and stuff like that. Are you more conservative when it comes to that at all?
So I think I had this today. It was like if I was considering adding one and maybe another set to my leg curls, and not anything to my good mornings. And I was like, in a mass, I maybe would add two. But right now, I'm just adding one. I rarely add two sets even to a single like exercise within a single week. So yeah, if I'm thinking 50-50, I won't add anything. But if I'm feeling confident, I will. So a lot of things have still been moving up in kind of the normal direction, in fact. So yeah, it's not too different from how I would go through a mass at the moment, but just I'm being more cautious.
Yeah.
But this week, unfortunately, I said to you last week how I lost over a percentage of my body weight on the week, and I was like, oh, that's a bit quick. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to add in another like 20 grams of carbs, and then you'd make that cool. And then this week, my weight is just stalled, and I'm just like, great. And you really question yourself. You're like, oh, should I remove that 20 grams of carbs? And normally you're like, that's when you're like, no, you don't want to make that many kind of chopping up and down. And that's when you start getting decision fatigue. And that's when you start stressing a lot. So I'm just keeping things as they are with that increase. And I think hopefully I'll see a new low coming to the end of the week. Something that I've noticed weirdly, my sleep slightly decreased in terms of quality. I'm finding I'm waking up a few more times in the night, not necessarily even to pee, just waking up. Also waking up a bit earlier, so a bit before my alarm that I wouldn't want.
This is something that I've experienced myself already as well, like since 4 weeks or so.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sleeping half an hour to an hour less per night. So yeah.
Are you like? I feel generally pretty damn good up until maybe like the final 3 hours of my day. The final 3 hours of my day is when I'm like especially the last hour, I'm just like in the sofa, just like kind of just like sat down. I don't really want to move. That I've noticed happening where I'm just like, if I could not move, this is good.
I didn't notice that with me, but probably also because the kids are around and the kids aren't asking whether you're fresh or not.
It's good actually in that way.
Yeah, but I can definitely tell, and this is something that is unfortunate, that I'm a little bit more quickly irritated by things. And yeah, I'm trying so hard to be aware of that and try to avoid it. But it is so far the biggest challenge for me. Like honestly,
yeah,
because
I have no doubt.
Hugo is at an age, and I think that is something that many parents can relate to. He's 3. And 3, he is at this autonomous stage where he wants to do everything himself, but at the same time, he's not cognitively able to actually then make compromises and understand consequences. And that is, oh boy, you can't imagine that. He is like, his rage and he has like, he's so emotional, right? And when he's angry, he's screaming, and that is just like something. Irrationality is something that I really don't like. I can't deal with that when someone is acting irrational. And a kid at the age of 3 is extremely irrational. Yeah. He's just basing things off of his emotions. And he, once again, isn't capable of understanding compromises and or consequences of his behavior. And that, it drives me crazy. And that in a dieter state, right? I need to keep myself calm. And sometimes I'm just like, I need to leave the room because it's just like, oh, this just... It annoys me so much, and sorry to be that blunt and honest, but yeah, this is how it is. Biggest challenge for me at the moment.
this is part of the beauty of bodybuilding and the journey, because how much are you going to learn and take away from being able to manage your emotions under severe stress? Like, I think especially, well, not especially for you, but just especially for anyone, like going through that experience. And then, I don't know, when you're in off season and he's being like a little shit, you're just like, it's really not that bad versus what it was.
Yeah. And I mean, I can look back here in December, November, October. I mean, his behavior and his entire development isn't that far away from where it was like in October, November, December. Yes, he's a little bit more mature and stuff like that. But the thing is that I couldn't care less during that time. I mean, that's not entirely true, but it didn't really irritate me. There were moments where it was like, all right, leave out your emotions. This is the place where you can do it. Now it's like, at times, I'm just, once again, as I've always been, just above it, where it's like, what is going on with you, Hugo? Right? But now also at other times, it's just like, please stop screaming. That is just too much. There's no reason for it. Stop screaming. Right? Of course, I'm not telling him that. And I very much am conscious about that. I don't want to give him the impression of something like, the thing that I truly want to avoid is that my kids look at me and are scared. And because males have such a deep voice and they can look and be quite intimidating to kids. And this is something that I truly want to avoid, because I had a stepfather that was quite intimidating to me. I always said like, okay, when I'm older and he's shouting at my mom, I will kick the living shit out of him. Like, honestly,
I'm laughing, but it's more of an uncomfortable, like, I know you would.
This is what I've sometimes thought as a kid when I was like 12, 13. And I heard them when I was lying in bed, heard my parents fight. So my stepfather with my mom, heard them fight on the floor below. I just thought, when I'm getting older and I'm getting stronger and I'm your size, I will kick the living shit out of you. Which is crazy, right? To say it out loudly. But this is what I thought. But at the same time, I was freaking scared of him. Because when he raised his voice, right, he was a big guy. He was weighing 130 kilograms. And when he raised his voice, I was scared. I was quite intimidated. And because I know how it feels, I don't want my kids to be put in that position where they are getting afraid of me, where they are doing things I asked them to because out of fear. I want them to, and this is also why I don't like when parents treat their kids like as if they are below them. There's someone called Jesper, I don't know, a Danish pedagogue. I don't know, is it called that on English?
I'm not aware of that word.
Someone who teaches kids, all right, or how to grow up. And he basically says like, okay, try to talk with kids as if they are a good friend of yours. Try to imagine that. Would you actually talk to your kids the way you do with your friends, right? And the other way around? This is always what I'm trying to do, but at the same time, of course, you have to actually try to make sure that they are growing up to individual and confident beings. But long story short, this prep teaches me a lot about how to, because when things are easy, they are easy. Now they are a challenge, and because of that, I need to be double or triple as conscious and aware of my behavior and my decisions. And yeah, I'm happy about the prep, but at the same time, I can see that it's still becoming even a bigger challenge later down the line.
Absolutely. No, I have nothing more to add apart from I feel that, and I'm very fortunate that I don't have a lot of those pressures going through me. Yeah. In fact, I found myself getting annoyed at the dog, and not that you can compare a dog to a human because she has no idea that I'm annoyed with her. Oh. I just shout at her and she thinks I'm playing with her, and I'm just like, fuck you, dog. Do
you want to hear a mess up story? No, that's too private. That's too private. So I will spare the story.
Okay, you can tell me off air.
Yeah,
and then I'll tell everyone.
Nothing about me, but more so with the biological father from Hugo, what his mom did to him. But yeah, that's too private, so I'll leave it here. So yeah, shall we move over to questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So Patreon supporters, as always, first. So we will start off with Huichai Shinde. Hopefully that was pronounced somewhat all right. So how to and how often implement pre-exhaust and post-exhaust techniques for body parts such as chest, which sometimes doesn't get exhausted with normal bench press.
Cool. So for me, I never really thought of a thing such as post-exhaust. That was just exercise order, like good general exercise order for most trainees is compound lifts first, isolation lifts later. So you can put more effort to the technique, to the lifts that require more technique, and that can be more mechanically loaded. So that's always been just, I don't know, I've never really heard of post-exhaust. It was never really a thing. It sounds like a finisher. Again, it's not something I've ever really used.
That's how I understand it as well.
And again, I mean, I don't know, the closest thing I ever used to a finisher or a post-exhaust is like metabolite work, maybe. And I thread that in every kind of like 3 or so mesocycles, and it's kind of later emphasis within the routine. That's post-exhaust. Pre-exhaust is something I've dabbled with very little. I think it's something that's very much for more advanced trainees, and kind of the idea behind that is like you pre-fatigue the chest so that when you go into bench press, the chest is the limiting factor. You might have to use less load. You get more stimulus for less fatigue for the chest, as it isolates the chest a little bit more by doing so. And I've only ever done like hack squats before barbell squats, and I don't know how I felt about it. It was a weird experience. I've not done, and also I did like lateral raises and triceps before an overhead press, but I didn't get the overhead press. Still just felt like shit. But overhead pressing for me often feels like shit. So I have a little bit of a bias against that movement. So I would say I've had clients, and I tend to leave it up to them to give me feedback. I've had clients who have really liked doing things like hamstring curls before an RDL. I've had clients who don't feel their chest, so I do like a fly movement before going into a chest press, and they found that to be beneficial. But it's not something I use for a lot of people. I think it is a relatively more advanced tool, or for people who particularly struggle to feel and isolate or get the prime mover, get it being hit effectively with the movement. And then you could always argue, well, if you can't feel your chest with a barbell bench press, why do a pre-exhaust? Why not just do like a dumbbell press or a like machine press or something? So that's where I stand with them at the moment.
Absolutely. And I found it very important that you're bringing up the last point, because that was something that was on my mind the entire time when you actually said those things. Like, why do a pre-exhaust in hope to get a better activation for that particular movement? So why not just go over to a different movement? Because, I mean, after all, when it comes to hypertrophy, not all we want, but mostly what we want is actually that intention, that mechanical tension that we can feel in a particular area. And then it doesn't really matter with what exercise you're picking to accomplish that. All right, so why then go with a bench press? There's nothing magical about a bench press or a compound lift over a machine lift that doesn't really give you what a different exercise could give you. I think that's still a misnomer, that people think like, the typical thing, like, okay, this bag was built by deadlifts. Fuck no, it wasn't. Maybe deadlifts contributed a little bit to it, but you could have probably achieved and accomplished that back, probably even exceeded that back with other exercises as well. So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. I have nothing more to add.
So he had another question. So Steve touched on one of his podcasts about whether to include protein intake from bread, vegetables, etc., etc. Can't find that podcast though. Especially during cut, do you exclude protein intake from such sources?
Cool. So yeah, it can be a really quick answer because I have talked about it before. And essentially what I end up doing is I just looked over like bread products, vegetables, fruits, just general, like on average carbohydrates. How much protein do they provide us? Per 100 grams of carbs, there tends to be about 20 grams of protein. Because those aren't full amino acids generally, like they don't have the full amino acid profile like a animal protein would, their quality, you could say, is a little bit lower. They're not going to maximize the muscle protein synthetic response on their own. So I tend to count them as half. And I can thank Mike Israetel for suggesting to count it as half. And then what I ended up doing was like, so if I'm counting them as half, there's like 10 grams spare. So to make up for that, I add 10 grams of protein for every 100 grams of carbohydrates within a diet in general. And I would say that is a over like security blanket than you would need to, and you probably wouldn't even need to do what I say there. But for most, like for myself, for my clients, they count every macro for every single source. I think it gets way too much into minutia and a huge pain in the ass to start taking away like fiber, to start taking away like basically non-full amino acid profile proteins. I think it's much easier to have just like general kind of guidelines and track it all in one. And yeah, so every 100 grams of carbs, 10 grams of extra protein goes on top of your general protein target, which is on average 1 gram per pound, especially if you're lean.
This is something that I wanted to bring up when it comes to overthinking things. I think that, yes, it may be valuable to be aware of things like these. But at the same time, what additional benefit does it give you? When you know that information, like, okay, there are protein sources that are not as qualitative for especially something like hypertrophy as other sources, just make sure to eat a little bit more protein. You don't have to be that minute to actually say like, okay, now I have 20 grams of a poorer protein source. That's why I'm making it up with other protein sources. I think that when you just add a little bit of protein, you should be absolutely fine, in my opinion.
Really, it's vegans probably who have to, they're the ones who have got the real pain, which I talked about in one of my vlogs, because I was just like, wow, they really have to think about what they're doing here, especially for bodybuilding, because generally a lot of the vegan proteins come with a load of carbs and fat involved, and maybe aren't full amino acid profiles. But no, I agree. A lot of the time, especially for nutrition, people way overthink these things, and you don't need to.
Yeah.
Actually, on that point, to expand this discussion,
absolutely.
Because something happened recently with my client, Andrew Potacek, who we might answer some questions from. And he was talking about how he feels like he invested too much into his prep, in that he was hyper focused on ticking every single box.
Okay.
And essentially the conclusion he came to, and I came to with him, was like, well, sometimes not ticking boxes is actually ticking bigger boxes. It sounds really stupid, but it's like, just because he's really hyper focused on like getting his sleep in and all of these various aspects, like certain supplements and being at home, eating at certain times, nutrient timing to the absolute T, that was taking away from his ability to be social, to be with other people, to have downtime, to chill out. And that box of like stress is huge. And I think a lot of people undervalue that in like, especially bodybuilders. We're so hyper focused on, we got to tick the boxes, we've got to leave no stone unturned. And sometimes leaving some stones unturned actually results in it kind of leads to a better result. And you look at people, Peter Fitcham recently did a post on this, like what successful kind of very good natural bodybuilders have done. And you look at someone like Jeff Alberts, look at someone like, why have I forgotten his name? You could look at Brett Freeman, for example. He's a family man as well. And they have other stuff going on in their life. They're not obsessed. And I think that obsession sometimes, like, yes, it can be very powerful, but it has to be like tapered sometimes. So yeah, I was just on that minutia topic because I was really glad that Andrew recognized it for himself.
And I think that the more experience you're becoming when it comes to training nutrition, the more flexible you are becoming. So I know that sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but what I mean is, you know that the world still keeps spinning when you kind of don't hit the macros to the T. And I feel like it's kind of like that U-shaped graph from the Dunning-Kruger effect, that it spikes up, comes to a halt, and then all of a sudden it comes all the way back down again, and then slowly it increases in regards to the knowledge, right? So you're overly confident at first about the things that you know, and you think that you know more than you actually do. Then you realize how little you actually know. That's where it comes down again, all the way to the floor, and then you're building up your actual knowledge. And this is the way I actually see training and nutrition as well, that many people get into the field and they are so extreme with their approach of like training, macros, all that kind of stuff. Like they think that they need to hit everything to the T, like everything. Also a training day. They can't miss a training session. Under any circumstances, it needs to be there. Otherwise, the muscles will fall off, right? And then after a while, the more the more experienced you're becoming, then you start to be a little bit more flexible about these things, because you realize, like, okay, it doesn't really matter whether I'm training here today or tomorrow. When I'm ticking off those boxes like 80-90% of the time, and I'm doing it for the next 20 years or so, right?
And I think to further that point as well, I had another client who came from very, very reputable coaches in the past, and he is someone who's always struggled with like binge eating episodes and falling off plan. And his check-in this week was one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite check-in of the year so far. And these sort of check-ins, you'll know these, Pascal, where it's just like, fuck, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I always thought I was the problem in terms of like the reason he was binging and falling off plan. He'd break his macros one day and then fall off. And he was like, actually, what I realized is when I was working with other people, it was never made, it was more so that it was very strict. And if I didn't hit certain numbers, that was like failure. Whereas we have ranges, we have like ways of hitting averages on the week and like managing things. And we have this kind of dialogue with one another via the weekly check-ins. So he feels like, and this is what I really love, is like you can never really fail so long as there's big kind of like ranges you can land with him where you can still move towards your goals. And it just means you might move a bit slower or a bit quicker. And as he gets better and better at navigating things, he's going to be more and more moving towards his goal. Whereas before it was like he was off track, like he hit a bump in the road and he just went off on another path. Whereas now it's like he can hit that bump, make a course correction, come back on. And that's like, and sometimes I think maybe people might look at Revive Stronger, and I think though most part we don't come across like this, but they might think we're a bit of a soft touch. They don't really like optimize things. They're not for me because I'm like hardcore bodybuilder. And I think actually sometimes these are the people we can help the most. And I've had people come to me like this, and it's like they expect me to be like explaining every minutia detail. And I'm like, chill out. It's not, like either of those options would be fine. And they're like, huh? And I'm like, when you think about it, there is no like massive benefit to either of those. So yeah, I just think it's worth saying.
So we have a huge spectrum of clients that we're working with. Some are competitors, some are very, very passionate about bodybuilding, but they aren't aspiring of stepping on stage. Some people just want to get healthy and want to look better. And the only thing that I'm concerned about is to enhance and empower, enhance their life quality, their health, and empower them for the future. I want to send them out there and be like, come on, go into the world. You're very much prepared for everything that is to come now. This is exactly where I want to actually want that the clients kind of leave. I don't want them to ever leave, but you know what I mean, right? Where I'm confident that they can handle now everything themselves. And it's not happening that often, but when a client actually comes to the point and says like, Pascal, you may not know it, but you actually changed my entire life. This is so truly rewarding. This is unbelievable, because this is exactly what we are always hoping to accomplish, which is definitely not the case with everyone. Definitely not. But if that actually happens with one client out of 10, out of 20 or so, it means the world, because that means that you've probably sent them out to live that life, hopefully in a better quality for the rest of their lives.
100%. It's kind of like client. I always say, like, I don't know, people say like client driven. And it's very much client driven. Like, we are very much focused on results, but not so that we're going past what the client really wants from it.
Yeah. And I mean, in the end, isn't that a result when they are actually living a better life, no matter what it looks like, whether it is with a six pack or not? All right.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people. but each coach can only help a certain number of people. Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that. And so the next step for us is developing a membership site. So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another. A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website. They will get early access to our podcast. You can access us, ask us questions, the community aspect. We have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey. There's also going to be courses on there, courses, presentations on different topics, discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging. We're going to have documentaries, our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library. The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them. We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets. I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it. You will get so much out of that. I'll see you inside.
And yeah. Anyway, over to Andrew White, supporter once again. Do you all have any opinions on how much of one's recovery ability is genetic versus not genetic, probably, so he missed something. For context, I continue to find that a strikingly low amount of sets can get me both great pumps and too much DOMs if I'm not careful. This makes high-frequency training difficult because the volume per session gets so low that it's not enjoyable. It can also seem wrong when so many people are doing 20 plus sets of chest per week while I seem to be growing from 14 to 16 at its highest. Just wondering if this could be a genetic difference or something I should be striving to improve through other means.
Cool. I think he almost answered his own question in a sense. This is where people get the kind of volume landmarks wrong. They look at maybe the recommendations out there. They see other people's numbers. It's like calories. Like they see, like, what are your calories, Steve? And it's like, well, that means nothing to you because I'm in my own person. I have my own genetics. I have my own environment. I'm doing my own thing. I'm trying to get my own results. It may not have any application to you. The same with set numbers. We have some average recommendations. And so long as you're not miles from that, or at least if you are miles from that, you've recognized whether or not that's appropriate. And he mentioned things like soreness, progression, and he's getting everything he needs from less sets. So I absolutely don't see an issue with the way he's going about things. And yeah, it's part genetic, it's part environmental. It's always going to be a kind of combination of those. But from the sounds of things, he's got things in check and he shouldn't worry about other people's numbers or the other recommendations. He should look at himself. And actually, this reminds me of, why have I forgotten his name?
You and names.
Jeff Albert's client, young guy, freak.
Yeah. Joshua,
yes. It's because, what's his Instagram handle? I'm always thinking of that.
Kenyo.
Yeah, Kenyo. So he put up a post like saying how, like showing his progression and how much muscle he'd grown. He was like, thank God I didn't listen to these gurus who say you can only grow a certain amount in the off season. And I just commented and I was like, mate, you shouldn't listen to the average recommendations. You're not average. Yeah. You are beyond. You are elite. He is insane. So, go from the average recommendations and use science as a starting tool and then modify to what you're getting from it.
Yeah, I have two things to say. First one is I've always been skeptical about those people who are claiming that they are able to do so much volume, right? Everything above 20 sets per body part, especially when it comes to the lower extremities, I'm always very, very skeptical. For something like the chest, back, yeah, depends on the exercise selection, but if it's a good split of like compounds coupled with the machine work, I'm always like, especially when it comes close to 30 sets per week, right? Then we tie into other questions of like, okay, is your form on point? Do you have a great mind-muscle connection? Yada, yada, yada. So many, many questions come into play with that when it comes to that. And I don't know when it has gotten that rep, so reputation, but since when is doing high volumes and tolerating high volumes a great thing?
Kind of sucks.
It actually sucks big time, because that means that you have to do so much more work, so much more effort. I rather want to be the one who's growing on like 10 sets instead of the one who needs to do 30 sets. So I don't know when the time came that people were like proud of doing high volume stuff. That just fucking doesn't make sense at all.
It's like having to diet on less calories.
Yeah,
that's never a good thing.
Absolutely. Like, why would you be proud of that? Why would you be proud of like, yeah, oh shit, yeah, I can go up to 40 sets per week here on the chest. Holy shit, all right. Be my guest to train like 6 days out of the week chest. Because that's what you have to do probably. Because otherwise each training session would suck big time. So I've never understood where this pride came from, and that like, yeah, I'm doing like 25 sets and you're only doing 14? There must be something wrong. I would rather would be the one who is actually able to just grow on as little volume as possible, right? Because that would mean that I get the most amount of adding an additional set, or get as much out of each repetition as possible. And that also, at the beginning, I was always a little bit skeptical when it comes to Z. Z is also a very good genetic outlier, in my opinion. And I was always like, that can't be right when I took a look at this program. I was always like, oh shit, there must be a way to actually ramp up his volume, up until the point where I just came to accept that he's someone who's able to grow on very little volume, because he's so good at engaging all the muscle groups from rep number 1 onwards. And you can truly see that. And this is something that we've been talking about in one episode, like from, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, that when you take a look at IFBB pros train, even if the form is kind of shitty and stuff, and they use a lot of momentum, you can see that the muscles are doing the work, and not like, I don't know, most of the connective tissue or just the swinging in it for itself. But you can really tell that the muscles do the work. And this is something that you have to take into consideration as well. When you're good at actually recruiting all of your motor units, you have a great mind-muscle connection. Perfect. Hey, be proud of that, because I'm taking pride in actually that my volume became significantly less over the past 1, 2, 3 years, that I don't have to spend ages and do 7 sets for, I don't know, 1 exercise in a single session. So yeah, long story short, it is definitely a genetic variation there. But overall, I would always be like, yeah, skeptical at first, and secondary, find out what works for you and take it from there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think I did a post about it, but we talked about it off air, where I was looking at some of my 2017 prep, and my first week, my set volumes were higher than my final week now. Yeah. And it was just like, man, that's cringe. And I think it was, I think people do it they overcompensate with volume for the lack of intent. And I don't necessarily mean intensity, I just mean the intent on the muscle group. And they kind of go through the motions. And that's where it can get like, you just enter junk volume then. That's like the definition of it. You're just going through the motions with things. So yeah, very well.
No, absolutely. So I think we are now at an hour, but let's keep the tradition up. So let's take one more question from our man, Andrew Pottercheck. So when will you yeah, you know, Andrew, when will you get a coach at Revive Stronger that has enhanced experience? Also, what's your favorite pre-gym carbs?
Well, I have enhanced experience because I'm that knowledgeable.
That's true.
But actually, I also have enhanced experience.
Not natty anymore.
So just to explain that very quickly, Revive Stronger, van accident, pituitary gland was fucked, needed to go on TRT for a short period of time. So I can't say lifetime drug free. I would still say I'm 100% natural, but you know, it's pedantics. As far as I'm concerned, I can compete. And it still has like haunts me to this day that happened, but it's just part of me. Anyway, so actually to answer that question, as of now, we have no ambition to bring on anyone who is a drug user as part of Revive Stronger. We are putting ourselves out there, putting knowledge out for natural bodybuilders, natural lifters. We have no future ideas of going into the enhanced realm, and we'd always, like we do, Andrew, you talk to Broderick because he is someone reputable who knows what he's doing with drugs. It's a huge undertaking to try and learn that amount. You know how much Broderick knows. So for any one of us to try and educate ourselves on that, I think would probably be irresponsible from like to try and take people on like that. So yeah, at the moment we refer out. Yeah, we don't have any goals to go down that route. So favorite pre-workout carbs? I don't know, just food. I don't really have a particular. At the moment, I'm having oats, cocoa oats. I've actually been incorporating my cocoa oats again, so I quite like those.
Thing is, I get up at 5 a.m, sometimes even earlier. Just have a coffee, have my protein shake, and then I'm going to train.
You're on that keto diet.
I'm on the keto.
Butter in the coffee.
My favorite pre-workout carbs are the ones I'm storing as glycogen in my muscles and also in my liver.
There you go.
There you go. Smart boy. Smart answer.
I want to give a more educated answer to this, but I think people, again, I think you can overthink these things so long as you're putting carbohydrates around your workout. Yeah. If you're trying to eat carbohydrates close to your workout, make them less fibrous, make sure fat's not so high, make them easily digestible so they don't give gastric distress. You're top of glycogen stores when you're in a deficit maybe, but
sometimes people are a little bit worried, like, you train early in the morning without any kind of carbs before your training session. Thing is, though, that I probably have all of the carbs I needed from the dinner from yesterday. It's not like I expended or used all of my glycogen in the middle of the night. So when people are concerned about training early in the morning, right, and there are no carbs in your system, there are carbs in your system. There are.
And I would just say some people like you have adapted to that and you feel great. If you don't feel great, like try incorporating like some Snacker Jacks or something easy to digest first thing and go from there, or an apple. Yeah. So,
but not the salted vinegar Snacker Jacks.
Get the pump sodium.
Yeah, but the thing is that your mouth and especially the lips, when you eat too many Snacker Jacks on salted vinegar, the lips, they just burn.
Do you find, very side tangent, very quick, does your mouth get drier when you're in a deficit? I don't know if it's just the change in
really
weather.
Thought about that, but
my mouth
maybe
is constantly dry. It's a very odd sensation.
I mean, I've been so many times sick here over the past weeks, and now I'm actually on the verge of getting sick once again because everyone at home is again sick. So, and I can really feel like, I don't know, a sore throat.
Are you on the garlic?
So when my my throat is actually dry at the moment. And over the past 3 months, ever since I was in a caloric deficit, I can't tell whether it is due to an upcoming sickness or whether it is due to the caloric deficit. So, yeah.
Have you been having lots of garlic?
Thing is, I ordered something at Bulk Palace and it arrived today. And now you can guess what actually missed in my order.
Oh, damn.
Yes. I ordered actually some garlic extract.
Yeah, that's what I use.
Because I wanted to give it a try. And that's why I ordered yesterday, so that I actually can give it a try before I'm getting sick. And they fucking missed it. I've never experienced that they missed a product in that entire package.
No, so, I haven't had that.
Yeah.
Damn them.
That is Bulk Powder's fault when I'm now getting sick. And then I will sue the fucking shit out of them.
Roast a load of cloves.
Because America. You can sue everyone.
We will see you next week.
Yeah. So see you guys.